So we know that real impact is best viewed through the eyes of Case-Arc's clients. There is really no other way to understand your impact as an investor. When you hear what brought them to the organization and you see and hear the journey that they have traveled with Case-Arc, you really feel the true impact of your investment. Our next speaker shares her very unique experience and her perspective. As a parent, and I know there's a lot of parents in the room, there's nothing more important than having your child grow up safely, and perhaps nothing more earth-shattering when you discover that one of your children has been suffering in silence. This is where Case-Arc shines. Case-Arc treats the entire family and gives them the tools that they need to heal from the devastating effects of sexual violence. Please help me welcome this morning our speaker, Heaven Struthers. Heaven?
Morning. Imagine a canvas, perfectly painted, nicely framed, and hung on the wall for all to admire. The picture on this canvas had colors of white, soft pinks, and different skin tones that became one group in the center. The picture was of a family with two loving parents who would do anything for their children to keep them safe. The mother and father were married. Time moved quickly, adopting their oldest daughter and having 3 more children throughout the years. Adding to the family unit brought so much joy. As that went on, and as you looked at the canvas, you couldn't see what really lied underneath the surface. It was a totally different picture. My name is Heaven Struthers. I am the woman in this canvas. I am the proud mother of 4 children with a long history of having hope and never giving up. Our lives moved forward. We relocated from California to Georgia, moving across the country, thousands of miles away from dear ones and family. All we had was one another, with no family close by. We faced different challenges, most very difficult. One of our sons needed surgery almost every month and was frequently hospitalized. The other son had many other medical issues. My husband began to focus on other things. He started putting his family second, but he made sure that no one else saw this. Those outside of our family thought that he was the perfect father. Meantime, I made sure that the meals were made, medical needs were met, and taking all of our other children to social activities, and helping where unexpected things would pop up and making sure things were done. There were always challenges, and I held on to that hope, thinking that things would improve. My husband got a job offer for a new position here in Washington, and that caused us to move all the way across country once again from Georgia to Washington. And we landed in a beautiful spot unlike any other here in Kirkland. It was a great new beginning. We all felt very refreshed, and there was so much to explore. Things seemed to be going very well, and we were finally happy. In fact, things seemed perfect, or so I thought. No one knew the true evil lurking about my home and in between my family members. Little did I know that I was about to face something unexpected and devastating to our family. One night, while I was at a neighbor's with my youngest children, I returned home to find police cars all over the neighborhood. I thought they were looking for a bad guy. What I learned, that bad guy was my husband. Little by little, bit by bit, over 8.5 years, I found out that my husband had groomed our oldest daughter, Anna, to be and do what he wanted. While I was busy running the household and handling many medical needs, he slithered right up to her. That night, he threatened to kill himself if Anna didn't respond to his pressure of sex acts. He got scared and left the house to cool down. That was when she ran to a neighbor friend and told her everything. The friend's mother called 911. As the Kirkland police officers and detectives sat me down, I had learned what had really been going on. I questioned everything I had done in my entire life. I felt horrible that I had married a person that eventually sexually molested our family, and mostly my daughter. And this all began at the age of 7 and finally ended when she was 16. Since that night, on March 23, 2014, I learned there are ways that predators gain to trust their children, their spouse, and their families, making sure that they appear to be the perfect father or mother. In our case, he wanted to assure Anna that he'd be the daddy she had always wanted. 13 years of marriage suddenly became a farce. The lies, the schemes, the manipulation all came to a head, and my eyes were immediately opened. After learning this devastating news, all I wanted to do was hold my daughter, give her hugs, tell her how courageous she is, and reassure her we'd be okay. I never knew how brave she was until that moment. He manipulated her into thinking that if she ever told, he'd get in trouble, lose his job, we'd lose our medical benefits that her brothers both desperately needed. This kept her silent for 8.5 years. My husband admitted to everything he had done. Our lives as we knew it were shattered. It's as if the door dropped out from underneath me and I couldn't do anything about it. Here we were, my 4 children and I, left to fend for ourselves with no means to support us. My name wasn't listed on any bank accounts, nor investments, nor 401k. He didn't want me going to the grocery store or clothes shopping. All the bills were in his name. I suddenly had to figure it out, and there was a lot to learn. And that's when I realized I was in a toxic marriage. I knew that I had to have faith and trust in God that we were going to pull through this. We slowly pieced our lives back together, and surprisingly, we found new freedom we never knew existed. No more control, no more manipulation, no more walking on eggshells, and no more negativity in our home. At a time when our lives came to so unhinged, I never had so much peace in my life. During this period, Jocelyn from KSARC became Anna's legal advocate. Jocelyn was our go-to person for any questions, concerns, fears, you name it, she was there. Anna had an interview with a deputy prosecutor in Seattle within days, and Jocelyn was there to help Anna through it. She helped us through the criminal justice process. She assured us that things would be taken care of. But mostly, she listened to Anna and I as we came to terms with our grief and anger. Jocelyn's support gave us the confidence that we needed to also pursue a case in Georgia, where it had all started. We were offered counseling to help us cope and begin to rebuild what was shattered. We started searching for a counselor who was a good fit, but most importantly, we were searching for a counselor for my oldest daughter. She went through 2 counselors at different agencies who just didn't feel right. Anna became discouraged, but she gave it one last chance. Having lived in Georgia for almost 9 years, we sorely missed that Southern accent and that Southern comfort. When we told Jocelyn this, she had an idea. She introduced us to Ellen at KSARC. Ellen has the best Southern accent. Once she introduced herself and began to talk to us, I knew we had finally found where we were meant to be. Ellen explained the program and left the decision up to Anna whether or not she wanted therapy. It was perfectly outlined, the step-by-step process of the program, and was going to be grueling and take some effort from Anna. 3 days later, Anna decided to accept Ellen as her counselor. Over the following months, Anna would come home with many different emotions: mad, sad, concerned, happy, relieved, hopeful, and frustrated. These are all healthy things to feel, but it was a roller coaster ride at times. This program opened wounds, broke down barriers, and Anna learned to communicate in a way she felt safe, which was desperately needed. I began to once again see the sparkle in my little but big girl's eyes. I knew Anna was going to be just fine. During this time, I began to see a parent educator at KSARC, Marie. She helped me understand what my daughter was going through. I learned ways to help her and what to expect along the ride, and how to remind Anna that she is loved, and most importantly, that none of this was her fault. There were days when I would see Marie that I left feeling emotional and vulnerable. I learned more about being a parent and about what predators do, the manipulation, the lies, and came to realize I was a victim of domestic violence. I didn't see it when I was in it, but I see it now. I am grateful for having KSARC being so involved in our lives right from the start of this horrifying nightmare. We would not have been able to get through any of these obstacles on our own. The programs they offered turned our lives around. We now have a voice. Anna has since helped other friends who've been sexually abused get help immediately. I have found my own voice, which is why I'm here today. As for what happened to my now ex-husband, you might find this interesting in how differently states treat these crimes. He served 9 months behind bars in Washington. And because Anna reported his abuse in Georgia, he took a plea deal there, where he recently started serving a sentence of 20 years in prison. He could get out on good behavior in 13, but will be followed for another 20 years on probation. Another difference, here, Anna got 3 years protection order. My sons and my youngest daughter and I got 1 year protection order. In Georgia, we all received a 40-year protection order and no contact order, along with a life of absolute freedom. Now as we march forward, the canvas that was once of simple color is big and vibrant, with an assortment of color that just won't stop shining. Anna has always done extremely well in school. She was active in sports, marching band, very social. Her goal was always to do well in high school so that when she graduated, she would leave, go to college, and never return. It saddens me to think that if this abuse never came to light, I wouldn't be standing here today with my daughter by my side. I would have never seen her again. Thankfully, she's here. Thankfully, she's come a long way and won't be leaving. Anna's dedication earned her an amazing scholarship at a local university. She's learning about who she is as a student, as an adult, and as a future graduate with a major in political science and a minor in business. She is fearless. She has great potential to do wonderful things in her life. She has not let this violence define her. Anna is a true survivor, and she is truly thriving in college now. As I close this morning, excited to see where the Lord takes us next, I want to thank KSARC from the bottom of my heart for all that you've done in supporting us. If you hadn't stepped in at the time that we needed you most, our world would have been different. The outcome, our futures, our lives as a family would not be what they are today. KSARC is an amazing program. Thank you again for your time, your passion, and opportunity for us to be loud. Thank you.
Thank you, Heaven, for sharing the story of your family. You and Anna are both such strong women, and I know that KSARC has supported you in your strength. So we wish both of you and all of your family the very best. Thank you for sharing your story this morning. Tough, inspiring, innovative, and real are just a few of the words people use to describe our next speaker. Mary Ellen Stone has made KSARC and its mission really her life's work. She's been affectionately referred to by a colleague as the godmother for all executive directors in human services because she is so well known and respected. Mary Ellen never fails to inspire to make a difference. She is putting a dent in the world that only she is capable of making. She has truly changed the landscape of sexual assault prevention, education, and victim advocacy. She is leading the forward movement that inspires us all to imagine a world without sexual violence. Please welcome KSARC's Executive Director, Mary Ellen Stone.
I've not heard the godmother thing before. I'm thinking a fairy willow wand, right? Good morning. It's wonderful to see you all. Thank you so much for being here. Our 2016 Be Loud Breakfast. You know, this is the highlight of my year. It is a very memorable day. And I want to acknowledge, thank you, Heather and Anna, for sharing your story with us. We can do that because of you, because of our outstanding staff, many of whom are here today. And if you haven't met them, they've got name tags and staff member on it. Please talk with them. I also want to acknowledge our board of directors who are highly engaged, very excited. They're all here this morning as well. And I also want to thank our table captains. 90 of you are table captains this year. We couldn't do what we've done, which is fill this room, without you. You're the ambassadors. You're our chief cheerleaders. You're our voice. So thank you so very much for doing what you've done. Now, the Be Loud Breakfast has evolved into much more than just our Cornerstone fundraising event. It's an opportunity to share accomplishments. It's a place where we gather people, where we recognize other people, we recognize activists and survivors, we recognize people who are individuals changing the way that we look at sexual assault. This is where change starts. This is when we come together to renew our commitment to say we want to stop sexual assault. Last year when I spoke with you, I said we can't change what we can't talk, we can't stop, let me try that again. What I said was, we can't stop what we can't talk about. And I truly believe unless we can honestly talk about sexual assault, sexual violence, what it looks like, what it is, what the impacts are, we can't make a change. You know, when we say, imagine a world without sexual violence, which is our theme, that's thrilling, and it takes my breath away, because we start hearing that theme echoed across the country. From coast to coast, we're hearing that. And we're hearing a lot now from popular culture that's really amplifying and really helping us move the needle on this discussion. For example, you've probably seen the No More campaign, which is really challenging the existence of sexual assault and domestic violence in a very helpful way. We have sports teams like our Mariners who are consistently speaking out about domestic violence. And we're seeing the media starting to cover this issue in a way that's not done before. The long overdue acknowledgement of the over 50 women that were raped by Bill Cosby over the last several years, over the last couple decades, but that's finally coming out as a way to start shifting how we're thinking about this. We see events like the movie Spotlight, the documentary The Hunting Ground, John Krakauer's book Missoula. All of these talk about sexual assault, but they're doing it in a way that help us see how it's being covered up, how we're not looking at it, how we're turning away, how we're refusing to talk about it. And that silence that we're creating is allowing sexual assault to continue. So it's a much deeper look. It's a much more change-oriented look. We can't stop what we can't talk about. The awareness that we have locally, nationally, and globally is great. Where the change, I think, really starts happening is when we do what we do today, when we literally start standing up for people, when we start saying, this is my story, this is my issue, when we start talking to each other about why this is important, when we change our behaviors, when we look at our attitudes, when we look at all of those pieces that underlie sexual assault, that's when change really starts happening. When we break down barriers, when we make sure that people have access to service, when victims get the services that they need and offenders are held accountable, that's when change starts happening. And one of the things that we do at KSARC is that we break down barriers. We break down barriers for families. Heather spoke about this so eloquently. We see sexual assault holistically. We know it's just not one person who's been impacted, but it's been the whole family. And so we make sure we tailor our services, our counseling, our support to meet that family's needs. We can take the time that we need, and we make sure that parents have the tools to understand maybe how this happened, how to deal with the inevitable setbacks that happened, how to bring the family back together. We're able to help people to talk about it. So we break down those barriers for families. We also break down barriers when we bring our expertise in trauma, in working with people from other disciplines. One of the projects that I want to give you a quick highlight on is our Project 360. This program, we've always known about the strong connection between youth homelessness and sexual assault. We know that 40% of all youth who are homeless have experienced some sort of trauma before they become homeless, and that frequently that's sexual assault. And for kids who are caught up in trafficking, that number is even higher. So what we were able to do is to partner with Friends of Youth and with Youth Care, two organizations that work with homeless kids. Because we know if we can't change the trauma that those kids are experiencing, that's going to ruin and run their lives. And we can't help them break out of the cycle of chronic homelessness. What we're doing now, which is tremendous, is we have two therapists, one at Friends of Youth, one at Youth Care. Together with their case managers, we're making sure kids get the help that they need. We provide the therapy, case managers do the other work around housing, around housing, shelter, food, so that those issues don't interfere with the therapy. And I will tell you, the results we're seeing are tremendous. What we're seeing is that, and there's a slide up for that, about 60% of youth completed therapy in this program. That doesn't happen in other homeless programs. We found that 71% improved their housing situation. That's remarkable. And 83% improved their overall functioning, including meeting therapy goals. This program works, and it's us coming together with our expertise and our partners to say, how can we do this better? In a little bit, you'll see a video about this program with two of our program graduates, Bonnie and Tyler, who graduated from the program. I can't wait for you to see this video. And so there's another example of how we break down barriers. The Latino community is strong and diverse, but when a sexual assault occurs, it damages the individual, the family, and the community. And earlier this morning, you met some of our Be Loud advocates, Michaela, who was a KSARC client, in the Don DeVos program. And Don DeVos works with the Spanish-speaking community, is designed specifically for people whose first language is Spanish. We are partnering with Northwest Justice Program to make sure that the civil legal needs of many of our Don DeVos clients are met, which means that we bring in a Spanish-speaking family law attorney to our offices once a week to meet with clients there in a friendly, supportive environment so that those legal needs can be met and we can break the cycle of sexual abuse that's going to be impacting people for generations. It's a great example of where we're bringing in our expertise and other expertise to make for a larger program. We are also breaking down barriers in the law. The Sexual Assault Protection Order, which Heaven mentioned, she has a slightly different protection order than the one that I want to mention to you, but we have a great law, and we believe, though, that it's not working well because the Sexual Assault Protection Order does not, only allows for people to get protection for 2 years. Great idea, doesn't work because every 2 years victims have to go back and get that renewed. That is discouraging, that doesn't work the way it's intended to do, and what we have been doing is leading progress on this front as well. We have a great bipartisan effort, passed through the Senate unanimously, on its way to a, fingers crossed, vote tomorrow in the House. We expect it will be on the governor's desk soon, I'm hoping, for signature, but that's the sort of thing that we're doing to say the laws need to work for people. If they're not working for victims, then let's fix the law. You know, I have a lot more I could tell you, but I want you to see the video because you're going to love it. The progress that we're seeing is your progress. It's what we have all done for the last 40 years. You have taken the Be Loud rallying cry to a new level. You have worn your Be Loud buttons, and everyone's got a button again. I will say that they're bigger. This is my godmother's status. They're bigger this year so we can see them easier at a distance. We want you to put them on. We want you to have 10 conversations with people. We want you to post this on social media. We want you to keep that conversation going because it's this sort of thing that's making the change. Issue your own Be Loud challenge. One of our supporters took the idea last year and took it to a much higher level. Dan Knopfler, who is here somewhere, I believe, made a poster, got 100 signatures on his poster for Be Loud. I'm urging all of you can see the poster there, I'm urging all of you to take this and have more conversations. We have got a long ways to go when it comes to stopping sexual assault, but I am confident that we're going to continue to make the progress that we're making because we can be better, our culture can be better, our laws can be better. And I do believe that we'll get to a point when every new student who starts college will know that sex without consent is not called sex, it's called rape. And I believe that every day, at one point, the media will portray someone who's a rapist as a rapist and not hide that because of that person's social status or achievements. I truly believe that our next generation is going to grow up free from the coercion, the fear, the stigma that is damaging as a result of sexual assault. And I do imagine a world without sexual violence. It does take my breath away, but that's good. And I want each and every one of you to be part of making that happen with me. So I want to say thank you so much for your support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being loud. And I think now... So I get to stay up here and introduce the video. You've heard about the connection, right, between sexual assault and trauma. We were also told as an organization, you know, you can't help these kids with trauma-focused therapy because it's too hard. And we figured there's got to be a way to do this. We have got to do more than we're doing. So we made a commitment to try and see how could we make sure that kids who need trauma-focused therapy get it. There is nothing more effective than hearing people's stories. I want you to meet on the video Bonnie and Tyler.
My name is Tyler. I'm a lot like you.
My name is Bonnie, and I'm a lot like you.
I've just always had this like massive appetite for just experiencing the world in some sense, you know?
I like to act, I like to be in theater, I love the arts. I've always had a lot of friends, both men and women alike. I was never afraid of making friends of the opposite sex until I got into college, where a lot of the men that I began to meet, they began to take advantage of my kindness.
I don't remember necessarily when the abuse started, but I always knew that something wasn't right. And I remember trying to say something.
The first time I was raped, I just brushed it off because I didn't want to accept that it had happened.
I remember when they sent CPS over, I remember being told to not say anything about it.
The second time that I was raped, it was similar circumstance. I had assumed because I knew where he worked, I knew that I would see him again, that he was a good guy. And the first initial uncomfortable situation was when he asked for me to kiss him, and I refused. He picked me up and took me to the bedroom, and then he raped me.
Running away didn't work, you know, fighting back didn't work, and then I found heroin when I was 15. You know, when you're subjected to something that is so horrible, I didn't know how to deal with it.
I was filled with fear, and I felt the best decision would be to run away from it all. I decided that I would run to Georgia with a person I considered a friend. She meets a guy at a bar, and she moves in with him, and she drops me off at Marietta Motel. It didn't hit me until I had to stay in the Salvation Army shelter that I was really not okay.
When I was 17, I left for Washington State, and that was as far away as I could go. And my first year in Washington was pretty rough. I was stealing from grocery stores to eat, you know?
I was living on bunk beds with about 30 other women. It just turned into like a prison. That's what it felt like. I was in prison in my mind, and now I was in prison in the world.
There's a lot of times when I didn't know where I was gonna even sleep the next day. I slept in the shelter at, Orion Center. I had no other real choices unless I wanted to sleep on the street.
I didn't have anybody to turn to. I couldn't go over a friend's house. I couldn't, call my mom to come pick me up or meet me at the coffee shop. I was literally 2,000 miles away from home and homeless.
I was depressed for so long. And it comes to a point that you can only take so much pain, you know? I wrote a suicide note. I said, I'm finally going home. I woke up and it was 5 days later. I was in the ICU at Harborview, handcuffed to the bed. My lung had collapsed, feeding tube, breathing tube, catheter.
In this process, I was attacked and robbed, where I decided to run back to Seattle, Washington with no plan, no money, and no hope. And that's when I found out about KSARC and Project 360. Through KSARC and Project 360, I was able to meet my wonderful therapist, Emily, who really helped me to confront my demons.
I knew that something was horribly wrong and that I needed to do something about it. I had a friend who is a therapist who recommended Project 360 to me.
KSARC and Project 360 just really became like my home. Came to Emily every single day here. No one had these conversations with me. No one tells me a rapist is a rapist because they are, not because of who you are.
They were just like, how can we help? What else can we do? And it just felt really special. It was wonderful to have some people to guide me.
I wanted to get everything back that I had lost. And I knew that it wasn't ever going to be the same because I wasn't the same person. I got my housing, I got back into school. I just felt like I could do the things that I couldn't do in about 3 years of homelessness and transitioning and trauma. I was ready to really just be a survivor, not a victim anymore.
For me, it's coming from such a long time of feeling damaged or broken or, a homeless person. Now I have this, expectation of myself to be better.
Now, I feel empowered. I feel like I am a lot stronger and wiser and mature. I think I'm ready to jump back into being a 22-year-old woman.
I'll never be able to find the words for how lucky I am. It was a gift that was given to me. I'm grateful for it. Anything is possible if you say it is, so say it.
I am strong.
I'm resilient.
I am blessed.
I know my path,
I am able.
just like you.
I am just like you.
I'm loud,
I am loud.
so be loud.
Be loud.
That's Project 360. We're really loud about it. Bonnie has a fabulous job in New York, could not be with us. Tyler is here, somewhere in the back. Tyler, can you stand up and wave? And congratulations. Thank you. I want to introduce a very special person to you. Carl Morris is a member of the KSARC Board of Directors. And I have to read this, sorry. He's the Program Director of Group Health Family Medical Residency Program and Clinical Associate Professor in the Department of Family Medicine at the UW School of Medicine. He's got a host of experiences of working in small rural communities as a physician to state-of-the-art medical centers on both sides of on both coasts. Carl is funny. He is understated. He's very smart. He's a great board member, and I'm happy to introduce him to have him share a few thoughts with you. Carl, which side is? Carl, there.
All right, good morning. Funny, I'm gonna have to work on that one. All right, well, good morning. My name is Carl Morris. I am an executive board member for KSARC and a family physician at Group Health. And it's a great honor to be here this morning. As I look out in the audience, I am amazed by 1,000 of us that came together this morning to raise our voices and be loud about sexual violence. I want to just feel the power in the room. I can feel it when I came here 3 years ago, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that story. Can I also tell you it's a little overwhelming to be speaking to 1,000 of you? When Mary Ellen asked me if I would speak, my first reaction was one of extreme fear. You see, I'm the guy in your meeting that sits there for quite a while and waits and waits and waits until I have something to say. And the feedback I get when I say something is they say something like, Carl, you know, you should speak up more often. And when you do, can you be louder? So this morning, I am moved to be loud with you this morning and share with you my perspective about sexual violence. As I'm speaking this morning, I want you to think about two things. Number one, what are you going to do to be loud when you leave this breakfast? And number two, what are you going to do to make a difference this morning? So I have three perspectives on sexual violence that I want to share with you this morning. One as a physician, two as an educator, and three as a survivor. I'm a family physician at Group Health, and my job is to see my patients and to teach the next generation of family doctors. I've seen sexual violence as I grew up in a small town in Oregon, as I did my training at Stanford and Harvard and the University of Washington, and as I cared for patients in a small town in Oroville, Washington, Harborview Medical Center here in Seattle, and on Capitol Hill with Group Health. I'm also a survivor of a long history of sexual violence in my family, happened from generation to generation, and it's from this experience that I want to share with you my perspectives on sexual violence. First, I want to share my perspective as a physician. It's through this lens that I want you to know the cyclical and pervasive effects of sexual violence. Sexual and physical violence is often the common thread that we see every day in the office that's underlying the suffering that we see. There is a real connection between the injury of sexual violence and a mix of common medical and mental health problems that many of you have probably experienced yourself or certainly know about. These are problems like somatic illnesses like migraines, neck pain, GI distress, and chronic problems like heart attack, stroke, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and social dysfunction like isolation, drug abuse, self-harm, and poverty. However, unfortunately for victims of sexual violence, these problems do not come as individual problems. They come as a package. They come as a package that gets passed down from generation to generation. So what does this look like? So commonly, this is a 37-year-old mother of two, has a history of anxiety, depression, and PTSD, has a history of substance abuse and many abusive relationships, who wants help from me today with migraine headaches, diarrhea, and panic attacks. The combination is overwhelming. It's overwhelming for both of us. I can prescribe medications and counseling, but I really know that I am under-equipped to really heal her. As provider and patient, we commit towards healing with the knowledge and the fear that's grounded in experience that this is likely to be a lifelong process of relative healing. And I have a very dry mouth, so I'm going to have to get a drink of water. I also want to share my perspective as an educator. As an educator, my role is to train family doctors. I help our residents understand that the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of their patients lies in their ability to understand them within the context of their life. I tell them that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be victims of sexual violence by the age of 18. That 25 to 50% of the patients that they're going to see every day in clinic likely have a history of sexual and physical violence. And I tell them that there is really great opportunity for healing through their understanding of the impacts of sexual violence on the suffering of their patients. And I tell them that the answer for the healing lies in the 360-degree care that's provided by KSARC. I tell them about survivors like Sue Taylor and Tim Burgess and Heaven's daughter Anna. And I tell them that what KSARC offers, we can't, which is a cure from the cycle of sexual violence. And lastly, I want to share with you my perspective as a survivor. I'm going to share with you my story. When I came to this breakfast 3 years ago, sitting in one of your chairs, I had no idea what was coming for me. I was listening to Sue Taylor tell her story of abuse and memories and realization and suffering. An overwhelming flood of emotions and memories came over me. Fear, anger, pain, guilt, embarrassment, sadness, and most importantly, understanding. As my teenage daughters would have said, I was a hot mess. Since that time, I have pieced together my story. It's a story I had known in 25 to 50% of my patients, but I had not seen in myself or in my family. The self-preservation that had driven me to success had hidden my memories of abuse. My story, my family's story, is a history of multiple generations of sexual and physical violence. My grandfather passed it to my father, who passed it to my mother, and my sisters, and to me. The pieces of my puzzle are a little better arranged. The nightmares, the fear, the self-harm, the timidity, the insecurity, the lack of trust, they all make a little more sense. My violence ended when I was 8, when I faced my abuser. However, my cycle of trauma continued. Our family did not have Case-Ark. We didn't heal, and our cycle of violence and trauma continues. However, I want you to know that I'm healing. I'm healing with you this morning as I tell my story. I'm healing as I own my story, but I don't let it define me. I'm healing by sharing with you that your survivors can be your father, your mother, your sisters, your abuser, and your doctor. And I'm healing through the love of my wife, Sandrine. I'm healing by helping Case-Ark heal the survivors of sexual violence. And I'm healing because I can imagine a world without sexual violence for my daughters, Elise and Margot, ages 14 and 16. And I'm healing because the cycle of violence has ended for me. So I asked you earlier to think about two things. How are you going to be loud when you leave this breakfast? And how are you going to make a difference this morning? So as you leave, and I've got some suggestions for you in case you didn't think of anything. So as you leave this morning, I ask you to be loud about owning the responsibility of imagining a world without sexual violence. I ask you to be loud by being abhorred by the prevalence of sexual violence. And I ask you to be loud by wearing your Be Loud pins every day until I see you again next year. When I came to this breakfast 3 years ago, I got my little pin, I stuck it on my lapel, I wore it for about a week. I stuck it on my desk and I looked at it every single day. Second time I came to the breakfast, I got a few more guts. I stuck it on my badge at work. And I wore it every single day, and I answered lots of questions about, Carl, what's Be Loud? And this year, I'm going to replace this little teeny Be Loud pen with this big Be Loud pen. So I ask you, and I urge you to wear your passion and imagine a world without sexual violence every day until I see you again next year. And this morning, I have a couple asks. This morning, I ask that you support the people at your table that need it. This can be a really emotional time for many of us. And I ask that you help Case-Ark. I ask that you give generously this morning so that we can help more people survive sexual violence. I want you to help us help more people like Anna and Heaven, Tyler and Bonnie, Michaela, Hallie, and Liz, and all the others escape the cycle of sexual violence. It's been an honor to share my story with you this morning. As the table captains are distributing the donation envelopes, I'm also excited to share with you this morning a unique opportunity. Inspired by the leadership of Paula and Jeff Pyatt, there's a group of people who have created a challenge pool. And I want you to know, I was surprised by this the first year I came. We raised $415,000 last year. This year, our goal is to raise $450,000. And if we do that, that will raise an extra $40,000. So what does $40,000 get Case-Ark? $40,000 of Case-Ark gets 448 more hours of trauma-focused child therapy, gets 1,200 more hours of legal advocacy services, and 1,400 more hours of sexual assault prevention. I ask that you think about these numbers as you think about your gift this morning, and I am confident that we're going to make this goal. So thank you for allowing me to share my story with you this morning, and let's be loud.
Thank you, Dr. Morris, for your unique perspective as a doctor and someone who really sees the impact that sexual assault has on people. I always get choked up. You know, we just never know who our stories are going to reach. So thank you for sharing your story about the impact this had on you personally. And also, I am glad for the bigger Be Loud buttons because then I won't have to wear my glasses to see them. So, table captains, if you would please distribute the envelopes. And, you know, this is really your chance to make a difference in the lives of people like Heaven, like Anna, Tyler, Bonnie, and really the thousands of survivors that KSARC helps each and every year. So as you are making your meaningful investment, remember the change you are creating in the world. One person can make a difference. But it's really the collective efforts of all of us in this room who are having a tremendous impact, not just on people here in King County, but across the entire nation, as Mary Ellen pointed out. So thank you. Thank you for your impact. Thank you for your investment. And thank you for being loud and for being here this morning, and I hope to see you here next year.